Hello. Can everyone hear me? Hello, hello, hello. So I just want to make sure people can hear me. All
Absolutely,
right.
Evan.
Cool.
We can hear you. Thanks for joining.
All right.
We're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you. So in fact, I was trying to come up with some slides, but I decided for the new website, for the new documentation, it's probably easier to just talk over the actual thing. So if you haven't read it yet, we recently announced a blog post that Vue 3 is becoming the new default version on February 7th, 2022. So essentially, there is some potential required actions here. It only affects you if you are using Vue over CDN without specifying a version, which is probably not a good idea in production. So fewer people probably use the latest tag for npm installs. So these should be rare occasions, but if you actually fall into these categories, please make sure to add a version range before we switch over the versions. So when we switch over the versions, I kind of want to also, before we talk about the documentation, talk a bit about the version switch itself, because there's quite a bit of details. I'm going to skip over the part where we talk about the history, the scope of the framework, and the launch process and all that. But long story short, on February 7th, 2022, we are going to switch over a lot of things. So first of all, the npm dist tags. After that, when you run npm install Vue, it will install Vue 3 instead of Vue 2. The latest tag of all Vue official packages will point to the Vue 3 compatible versions. So if you have, so this mostly affects new installs when you install a package without specifying a version range, right? Because it'll try to locate the latest tag on npm. But if you have an existing package JSON that is using the latest tag, you should definitely start pinning them to exact versions. Then we're going to switch over to the website. So the new Vue.js.org, router, Vuex, test utils, and template explorer, they will all be pointing to the version 3, the Vue 3 versions. And this is currently deployed at staging.vuejs.org. So you can start reading it now if you're curious, which I will talk more about just in a minute. The new Vue.js.org will be the completely reworked version instead of the current v3.vuejs.org, which will essentially become legacy. So to be precise, the Vue 2, the current Vue.js.org, that is the Vue 2 documentation, will be moved over to v2.vuejs.org. So we also have already set up the redirect rules. So if you say search on Google and you hit an old URL from the Vue 2 docs, it'll actually also redirect to the new V2 location. So everything will be still be there. And all the existing Google search records will actually redirect there, which is great. We'll do the same for the router docs, Vuex docs. So these version prefixes will be the version of this library itself instead of the version of Vue that it intends to work with. So just to be clear about that. And then we're going to switch over the GitHub repos, which we in fact have already done. Vue Next has been renamed to Vue.js/core, and this will be the new main repository for all future work of Vue 3. Renamed Vue Router Next to just Vue.js/router. Docs Next is now just Vue.js/docs. Test Utils Next is just /test utils, and JSX Next, in fact, has been renamed to Babel plugin JSX. since it's what it is. We've also moved the translation work for the new docs into a separate organization so that we can more easily manage the membership and workflows. So Vue.js Translations is a new organization where we try to centralize the workflow for community translations. It's currently still a work in progress, but we plan to come up with more detailed guidelines after we launch the new docs. All right, so now let's head over to staging.vuejs.org. So the first thing you'll notice is, yes, we got some gradients. It's got a new design, it has dark mode, it's responsive, has some pretty nice mobile experience. And the rest of the layout is actually the same. But when you hit get started, you notice that we've completely reworked the introduction. So one of the things that we felt that really worked for Vue 2 docs is we try to stay as lower level. We try to stay as beginner friendly as possible. So in Vue 2 docs, we introduce you to Vue without any sort of build tools concept. We don't even mention single file components. So this makes it very easy for beginners to get into. But this also kind of introduced the problem, because when Vue first came out in 2014, right? That's almost 8 years ago. Build tools were still kind of the new fancy stuff. Not every developer even know that build tools exist. Back then, most developers assume you just build front end with scripts. You import the scripts on the page, and that's how you build web pages. But today, the landscape has changed a lot, right? Almost everybody knows that you need build tools if you want to build large-scale complex interactions. You want to build single-page applications. People want to build full-stack applications. They want static site generation, right? There are a lot of concepts that people are now table stakes for frameworks. And most importantly, single-file components is one of the most important features of Vue. Almost, I would say 90% of production developers that use Vue actually work with single-file components. However, in the previous iteration of Vue 2 docs, it's kind of hidden far away in the docs. So you basically go through the whole guide, then you realize, oh, there is this thing called single-file components. We've got a lot of feedback from developers, from our users, and also people coming from other frameworks. They read the Vue docs, and they feel like they don't see the whole framework when they first get into it. So this is kind of a trade-off, right? We don't want to intimidate beginners, but at the same time, it's easy for people to assume that Vue is only about including some script tags on the page with string templates. They don't really see the full picture of what Vue can offer when they grow beyond that stage. So we redesigned the introduction to be more upfront about the scope of the framework, right? Because the scope framework has changed, has increased. We now offer a lot more than just a runtime library. So we talk about the basic core features like declarative rendering and how you get something on the page as fast as possible. But then we talk about the progressive framework, which is the tagline, right? So when I was rewriting this page, I realized we didn't even talk about what the progressive framework is in the Vue 2 docs. So this section explains it, that Vue is flexible and versatile. It can scale up and down to fit different use cases. This links to a lot of new chapters that talks about ways of using Vue in more details. And then we talk about single file components. So we want to bring this up early, up in front, because we realize today a lot of developers, the majority of the developers will end up using build tools, even if when they start they don't use it, right? When you try to build a real app, when you try to get a job, you end up using build tools, and you'll probably be using single file components. So we introduce it early, and then we give you the option. So when you go through the docs, a lot of the examples will be in single file components. But when you go to the other parts, which we'll talk about, you actually have the option to see the same code in both single file components format and non-single file components format. But nonetheless, we introduced it early on so that you get an idea of what most production Vue code will look like. Then we talk about the API styles, right? So this is one of the biggest things that have confused our users over the last year is we have options API. We also have composition API. Which one should I use? Which one should I learn? So here we give you a very quick overview of what they are. We have examples that you can look at. Then we talk about which one to choose. So this whole redesign introduction flow is really about answering some of the most fundamental questions of how you want to approach Vue, like what Vue can give you and how you probably want to work with it, right? You can pick whether you want to use single file components. You can decide whether you want to use which API style. And then we try to design the whole flow of the documentation to suit your preferred styles. So when you are reading through the chapters, which most of these have been significantly reworked, right? The whole arrangement, the ordering, the details, the code examples, everything has been reworked. We spent a huge amount of time on this. So for example, the reactivity chapter, we give you, so in all guide chapters, you can toggle between options API. So here's a code sample. If we toggle over to composition API, it just goes into composition API. So this is going to be interesting because you can choose to use the new documentation in different ways. If you are a current Vue 2 developer whose primarily experience is in options API, and now you're saying, okay, I want to learn Vue 3 with composition API. Right? So the whole guide, instead of giving you a dedicated thing, say, this is the composition API, I would strongly recommend going through the new guide again while choosing composition API as your preferred style. This will give you a much better idea of how composition API fits with the rest of Vue. And you also realize when you are going through these examples, you can toggle between the two styles at any time and see the comparison. And see how they're interconnected, because in reality, all the features in the Essentials guide, they are the same features, but they can be used slightly differently by choosing a different API style. So this is why I keep saying that composition API and options API are just different interfaces of the same underlying core, right? And then in our other sections, so reusability, this is probably the most important new chapter in the new guide is the composable section. So we explain what is a composable, a function that uses composition API to encapsulate logic, right? So give you examples. I would strongly recommend reading this if you are new to composition API, or if you've been using it for a while but haven't started extracting your own reusable composition functions yet. And then we reorganize most of the guide chapters so that you have a new routing recommendation, new state management recommendation, new testing recommendations, a high-level server-side rendering guide that's directly integrated into the main docs. We also have a dedicated section for TypeScript. So high-level overview of how to set up a project in TypeScript, IDE support, how to configure everything. Most of this will be ready out of the box with our new scaffolding tool, which is called Create Vue. But if you want to scaffold everything yourself or just understand how everything works, we document everything here with utility types. So we also talk about how to use certain features with composition API. There's dedicated usage of TypeScript with options API also. And then we have chapters that talks about Vue and web components, completely rewritten introduction to render functions in JSX, a new composition API FAQ that compares the two API styles, explain why you might want to use it. Reactivity in depth. This section talks about the ins and outs of the Vue reactivity system. Again, most of this is completely rewritten. Rendering mechanism. So this is fun because it talks about how Vue's compiler and virtual DOM work together to deliver the best performance possible. The concept of compiler-informed virtual DOM, like the kind of optimizations that we do at compile time to make the runtime fast. So after when I finished the docs, I felt like I've written a book. So I really hope, even if you've already read the old docs, cover to bottom, you really, I would strongly recommend going through the whole guide in the new docs, because literally I would say 70% is new content. Okay, so that's the guide. So outside of the guide, we also have a new tutorial. So this is for people who prefer more hands-on learning. This is also great if you are coming from Options API into Composition API, because again, you can choose the styles, and then you can go on and we'll have little examples, code challenges that you can finish. So I can show the thing here. This is a live playground. So everything I type here will update in real time. So, and the tutorial covers most of the course concepts, and it tries to do so in a context-free way. So each lesson you should be able to just read and then complete a small challenge and move on. This is great for current Vue 2 developers to sort of re-experience Vue 3. And then the example section also got expanded, right? So we have the basic examples, covers the features. We have the classics. So these are the same examples that we currently have on the Vue 2 docs, the to-do MVC, the model, SVG graph. And then we added a whole section called 7 GUIs. So 7 GUIs is a series of specifications. So it's a really interesting project where it describes 7 tasks, 7 common UI tasks that focus on different aspects of common user interfaces. And then it challenges you to implement all 7 tasks using a given framework or technology. Right? So the original author implemented everything in React. So obviously, we need to do it in Vue as well. So there's the counter, temperature converter, fly booker, a timer, a CRUD example, a circle drawer with undo and redo. And then there is an actual spreadsheet that you can edit with formulas. So here's that, right? So I can say equals A0 multiplied by 2. And here we go. So if I say this is 3, it updates. Right, so this is how So this is the example we use to explain reactivity, and we actually built it with Vue. And the code isn't really super complicated. It's just 3 files, right? So a lot of interesting stuff. You can dig around here. And of course, every single example, you can toggle between Options API and Composition API to see how they stack up against each other. And even toggle between HTML. Oh, okay, we have some errors here. But you get the idea, right? And then you have a new quick start page. So this is good if you're just trying to jump into a brand new Vue 3 project. It walks you over some of the recommended setups. Do it with build tools or without build tools. One cool thing that I would personally recommend is StackBlitz has this Vite template that works right in the browser. So it's an actual Vite setup. It is actually running Vite in the browser, which is pretty cool. This is not even, so there's no server running on their servers. Vite is not running on their server. It's actually a new technology called web container that is able to simulate Node.js directly inside your browser. So you can, this is an actual Vite project that you can configure. Everything is the same as if you would scaffold it on your own machine, but it works in the browser directly. And even the hot module replacement works the same way. So then we have the new API reference. So we give you a big index that you can filter down. So let's say I want to see what refs are about. Okay, so it shows all the ref APIs. Then I can go to the completely revamped API sections. We also have link to the SFC playground. So this is the same playground that we use in the tutorials and in the examples, but this one persists the state in the browser URL. So you can use this to send small examples or send us bug reports, reproductions. And yeah, we have a new FAQ page, answers some of the more generic questions about Vue. And this is pretty much it about the content of the new website. There is a lot of stuff to dig in. So you can start reading it now, or you can wait until we actually switched over. But now I also kind of want to, I don't know if I still have time, but I want to also briefly talk about the performance of this website. So if I go to the network tab, this thing is my, so ignore this one. This is from one of my Chrome extensions. So these are the two files. So filter it out. So these are the two files that's actually from the whole website. So the entire app is a single file that's 46 KB. And then the index page is 1.7. So this is a pretty complex website, and it's actually a single page application. Every page navigation is SPA. You don't even see the page load on navigation. It's all instant because we intelligently prefetch everything that's all the links, or the pages that has links in the viewport. And then if we look at the performance, oops, wait. Okay, this includes the thing from my Chrome extensions again. I need to do it in a anonymous tab, which I don't know if I'll be able to share on the stream. So that's unfortunate. But we can do it another way. Let's say I'm going to analyze this live. Hopefully it doesn't give me a weird number, but let's see. Yay! 100 performance score. So this is, so note this 100 score. It's on mobile, right? On desktop, it's definitely 100. There's no question to ask. But on mobile, notice that this is on an emulated. This is on an emulated Moto G4 with slow 4G throttling. So this is all simulated, like last gen device with less than ideal network speed. And we still get 100 performance score, right? So I would encourage you to try page speed index on some of the other sites, like documentation sites of other frameworks, and see how they perform, and you'll see the difference. So what's the secret sauce for the speed here? So the new website is actually built with VitePress, which is the Vue 3 plus Vite powered static site generator. And we also, of course, we have some, so the whole theme is actually built as a Vue single page application with full client-side hydration, yet still extremely performant. The hydration usually takes around around 30 milliseconds on my machine. And as you can see in the report just now, even on a slow mobile phone, the hydration takes like 70 milliseconds. So it is extremely performant. A large part of it, of course, is because Vue 3 itself is very performant. But then VitePress essentially gives you a very same default of pattern for sites that have a interactive shell with largely static inner content. But at the same time, you can embed dynamic content anywhere you want in here. For example, in our introduction here, this is an interactive demo. That's actually a Vue component. It's interactive. I can click on it, but everything around it is pure static content that has no hydration cost. And Vue will intelligently only hydrate this part that should be dynamic on the page. We also lazy load the search box, right? So this search box is Agolia. So when I click on it, it dynamically fetches the code for the search box and then renders this. This code is actually around 25 kilobytes. That's like more than half of the size of our of the rest of the payload. So we lazy load it. It's only loaded on demand. We use AVIF images where possible. So this is a VitePress powered site, and it's great. So in the future, I'll probably talk more about some of the nice features that we currently have in VitePress, but undocumented yet, that I essentially built during the process of working on the new documentation. So VitePress is currently 0 point something, but after working on the documentation, I believe it's pretty solid now. So we're probably going to move it to 1.0 soon, later this year. So expect VitePress to become stable very soon. And that is it for the new documentation.